about 12 hours notice of what I was going to be preaching on, and he came up with some great songs and so well with the lesson. I was glad to be able to teach everybody a new word this morning. It actually is a real word, and Tom didn't believe me, so he Googled it to find out. And it is. It's used in psychology and counseling and all of that. It's an actual word. It's one of the new words for 2019. So now you know the rest of the story. And Tom taught me some things about the word I didn't know after he Googled it. It is so good to be back, and I mean that. Missed not only being away from my family, but I missed being here with this congregation, especially last Sunday when we had the 61st anniversary. I caught the first part of Bobby's lesson, and I caught the last part of his lesson, and I caught Greg's announcements. I was watching, it was like 12 midnight India time, and so I didn't stay awake for the whole thing, but I nodded off and I got the main points of it, and it just did a great job. And see, now I know how you feel having to listen to me. All right, now it's about 2 o'clock in the morning over in India, and it's a time adjustment, but if I can make it till about 3 o'clock, I'll be ready for bed, and we'll go from there. The great thing about jet lag is you're really, really productive from about 3 in the morning till noon. Then after that, you're worthless the rest of the day. So if you want to call me tomorrow, call me before noon, and we can talk. Wanted to share a few things with you about the trip. You gave so generously, so many of you did, to help me go and make this trip, and appreciate it so much. As you know, before I came to Forest Hill, I was the regional director with the Asian schools for the Bear Valley School of Preaching. Now I'm, of course, no longer doing that, but there's one school in India now that I'm still helping to coordinate. I don't have to really do much at all. The school is run so well, and just wanted to make a trip over there since this is our newest school. Wanted to see how it was, and happy to report things are going really well. I think you'll enjoy this. I'm not going to put a whole lot of pictures in here. As a matter of fact, very few pictures, but what I want to try to do is kind of get you in the Indian culture, and it's not going to work, but I'm going to try my best. The best way is just to go with me sometime, because you won't believe it until you see it for yourself. But just to give you an idea, it is 86% Hindu over there, and about 6% Muslim, and 2%, quote, Christian. That includes anybody who would call themselves a Christian. And if you're talking about members of the Church of Christ, it's about 0.001. So you're talking about an extreme minority. However, the church in Andhra Pradesh especially, but other states as well, is just growing at a tremendous rate. There's estimated to be about 30,000 congregations in the state of Andhra Pradesh alone. And that's only after a little 50 years of the church being planted there. So 30 to 50,000 congregations in one state alone. Some people have asked, it's going to come to the day when there's going to be more Christians in India. Man, that happened a long time ago. There's more Christians in India than there are in the United States. However, the church is still that small because their population is so huge. So there's so much work that needs to be done there, and so much great work being done. And it's amazing within 50 years how much the church has grown and what has taken place in there. And if you haven't ever read Ira Rice's book, you need to read that. I think I've told this story here before, back when I did a report to you all before I was the preacher here. Ira Rice went to Pakistan and didn't get much results there, so he dropped down to India, and he went to Andhra Pradesh and said, man, this is the place where I need to come and work. But for an American, you can only stay for 3 months, and then you have to leave the country and reapply for a visa, which obviously would not work. It'd be so counterproductive as far as cost. But on his way back to the airport to leave, he sat behind 2 nuns and listened to them talking. And one nun asked the other nun, how is it that you get to stay here? And the nun said, well, I'm a Canadian. Canadians can come as long as we want. So he called Brother Bailey when he got back, the one who had done so much great work up in Canada for so long. At the age of 57 years old, he moved to India with his wife and two twin daughters that they had adopted and started the work over there. And that's where he met Joshua Goodham. And make a long story short, that's really kind of how it got started. You go over there and you see J.C. Bailey's name everywhere. He just did such an amazing work while he was living, especially over there. So anyway, so that's where it started. First couple of pictures are just kind of, this is what you get. And I said that about the Hindu culture, yet you see this type of thing, Christmas. Christmas music being played in the airports. I even heard one kid singing Jingle Bells in English while I was over there. He probably had no idea what the words meant, but he knew what the words were. And so, they will celebrate Christmas to some degree as one of their many holidays. But this was in the airport, and it was a beautiful tree. Of course, it's the middle of January, but they're still up, and the Christmas music is still playing. And then, not too far after that, this is one of the things you see in the airport. And you cannot walk literally 100 feet in India without being in view of some idol, some false idol. It's just amazing to me how entrenched, obviously, they are in idolatry. There are so many gods that they worship over there, they really don't have any idea how many there are. I've asked that question several times, and the best answer I get is just hundreds of thousands of different gods. Really, there's just new gods being invented nonstop. They have adopted Jesus Christ as one of their gods. And so if you look in the Hindu wheel for the main gods, I say wheel, they have a wheel of the different gods that they have in Hinduism, and you'll see a picture of Jesus in that wheel. So they've adopted him as one of their gods. They'll take just about anything as gods, rocks and trees and then all of these things, and will bow down and worship them. But they have very intricate idols all throughout the country. Where I went, it was a new place for me. I'd never been there before. It was in Andhra Pradesh, but it was called Tirupati is the name of it. It is the capital for the temple capital. The most holy temple is there in Tirupati. And each day there's 70,000 pilgrims that come to worship at that temple. 70,000. It's not the same 70,000. It's a different 70,000. When I was leaving, the celebration of Pongal was getting ready to start. And during this festival and other festivals, it's over 100,000 worshipers at that temple every single day. And you think about, each worshiper has to pay an homage to the God, and that's money. You think about how much money is brought in, and that's really, well, you want to talk about the very base of Hinduism. It's all about money. It's all about money. Let me just say this, and we'll get into this. One of the things that really used to irritate me when I would go and make presentations, people would I don't know who came up with the word, somebody who was probably well-meaning would call people in these types of places rice Christians or bread Christians. And what they meant by that is really kind of derogatory. In other words, that these people only became Christians so they could get free rice, free things. It's all about the money. They became Christians to get money. Let me tell you this, even in the caste system, the lower caste receives the less from the government, the least from the government, but every member of the caste society receives a stipend from the government each month. Whether it's low class, middle class, or the high caste system, they each receive a stipend. When you convert to Christianity, you lose all government funding. When they find out, and you have to list what you are religiously, when you list you're a Christian at the whatever census it is, you lose whatever stipend that is that you receive. And so people talk about rice Christians. No, if you were in it for the money, the best thing you could do is stay a Hindu in India, if that's all you were interested in. So these people, when they obey the gospel, they give up things that you and I will never truly understand. and it comes to that. And they are kicked out of the caste system, which means you're nothing. You're not in any caste, even the lowest caste, which receives only like 1% stipend, they lose that. And if you have very, 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 very little, that 1% is a big deal. And so they lose that when they obey the gospel. And so it just really irritates me when someone uses that phrase, oh, they're just doing it to get some money. And then that's just not true. I'm sure it might be true of some people there, just like it is here. But overwhelmingly, it is not the case that people are converting to Christianity because of what they can get from Americans when they obey the gospel. All right, so that's my soapbox. I'll get down now. But this next one, and this banners must be dirt cheap over there because they make banners for everything. You'll see banners, and this is a common thing when you go there. They are very much about the show when it comes to welcoming people, saying goodbye to people. This is the banner they were holding up at the airport when I got there. And you can see some of the flowers that she has. I also got roses by everybody who was there, single roses. And so I was loaded down. I had a garland over me. They put a shawl around. I mean, it's just a big deal to go anywhere when you're over there. And it's amazing how many flowers I have just thrown in a trash can as soon as I got back to the hotel. Because what are you going to do with them, once you have them? And I even made the statement, I tried early on. It never works, but I try every time. I said, boy, I only brought a suitcase this big and it's loaded up. I'm not going to have room to take anything home with me, no souvenirs or anything. But boy, when I left, they loaded me up with stuff anyway. And some I brought back for the kids and others I gave to other people, when I was away from where I was. They load you up. And so this is kind of the ceremony in this. This next one, these two people, this one right here, he was converted from a denomination. His name is John Wesley. John Wesley is his name. Do you want to know what he looked like? There he is. And this man here, they told me his name, but I didn't write it down because I had no idea how to spell it. But you can tell probably that they're both blind, is why they're not looking at the camera. John Wesley was converted to Christianity, to Christ, a few years ago. And he took the gospel to a blind area. I mean, I don't know how in the world he was so connected with the blind population, but he is. This man reads Braille. He was in the class that I taught every single day, although he's not an official student. He was in the class every day, did very well in the final exam. But anyway, he took the gospel to this blind population that he has a lot of contact with. And he converted 27 blind men on his own with the gospel. And he's converted, that was just at one time, and converted several. He is going to places that most other people wouldn't have the connections, wouldn't have the know-how, and really wouldn't have the pool that he does with these blind people. That's his ministry. That's his work, to work among the blind. He's an outstanding preacher from what I've told. He's an excellent Bible student. This other man, right here, the one I didn't get the name of, he travels every Sunday 80 kilometers to get to worship service. This is an interesting place that I went, and it was new for me. And you can kind of compare it over here as well. You have the Bible Belt in the South, in Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and other places like that. Have the Bible Belt in the South. In the North, obviously not so much. The church is not nearly as big up in the North here as it is down here in the South. Well, I was in the South over there, which is not the Bible Belt. So there's not nearly as many congregations. The church is a lot newer there, and it was kind of exciting. One of the great things about living in the Bible Belt is the fellowship that you have. One of the tough things about living in the Bible Belt are the church politics that sometimes come into play and all of this type of thing. Well, it was refreshing going over there this time in India and being away from the Bible Belt, if you would, so to speak, in India, and being in this place, there's not nearly the jealousy among preachers over there. There's a lot more congregations combined and doing great things together. It was just a really great trip and refreshing for that part of it. So the church isn't as big over there, and this man, like I said, travels 80 kilometers by himself. I asked, how in the world does he do that? He says he just gets on a van or a bus. Yes, oh, is that all? He's blind. But he does it, and of course, I'm sure it's a lot easier for him than it would be for me doing so blind. My first Sunday there, they had a combined service. They do it every year, and it just so happened that I was going to be there on this day. 4 different congregations got together. Over 300 people were there in attendance. And so they had their combined assembly. They start the year with a combined assembly. So there's 4 congregations that were there. And, one of the things I asked, what time we start tomorrow? This is on Saturday. I arrived on Saturday, and we're going to be worshiping, of course, the next morning. So what time do we start? Oh, they said 10:30 or so. It started about 11, actually. And this picture was there at the very beginning. It filled up even more than that by the time I was done. I always have to take pictures early because, when I'm preaching, I don't stop and take a picture. And so there was a lot more people than this. So afterwards, there were 7 people who were baptized. And let's see, I don't think I put a picture of that in here. No, I didn't. Oh, yeah, I did. It's later on. 7 people who were baptized. And all 4 of the preachers from those congregations got up and talked a little bit after I had finished preaching. But this is the picture I want to show you, and it was the main slide that Krista put up. These were the children during worship. This worship service, it was a lot longer than it normally is, even for them. It went about 4.5 hours. And those children sat up there, which would be right here. Imagine that. Imagine our kids coming up and just say, this is where they were. The pulpit is right here. And so the kids, you can see this guy looking at me. That's how close they were. And so for 4.5 hours, they sat there, and nobody had to come up and get after them or anything. I only saw one mother come up and get her child, and I think he needed to use the restroom. How they deduced that, I don't know. But for 4.5 hours, those kids sat right there. And just imagine. And that's concrete, and that's a little mat that helps not at all brace you from the impact of concrete. I've sat on some of those, and they just don't do much for you. But there those kids are for 4.5 hours. I brought some bracelets back for some of the girls. These are the kids that made those girls. Those of you who got some of those bracelets, those are those girls in that picture made those and did an outstanding job. But children there are just, of course, like everywhere, very, very precious. But to see him sit like that, I thought, man, I know I couldn't do it. My attention span would not go on. And so I preached for about 45 minutes, which was a short lesson for them. But that's, I didn't feel like going an hour or two. So I went for 45 minutes, and I'm glad I stopped it short because I didn't know all 4 preachers are going to come up and say some things as well. And the Lord's Supper over there is like a mini worship service in and of itself. They preach about 10 minutes before they eat the bread, preach another 10 minutes before they drink the fruit of the vine, and another for the giving. And they just don't they just take their time on Sunday. Part of it is they don't have worship in the evening, and they don't have a midweek Bible study. And so Sunday, they just make it really an all-day event. Fed everybody who was there. Just a great, great day. And as I said, we had 7 people, and I'll show you that picture coming up. These are kind of out of order. This next one, this is the man I worked with. His name is Vijay Kumar. And if you go over to India and ask for Vijay Kumar, you'll have about 2 billion people respond. That's a very popular name. Vijay, number 1, and then Kumar is a very, very popular last name. Vijay Kumar. He's a great man. He was converted. He went to, his dad was a Baptist preacher. His father was converted. And of course, he obeyed the gospel, and all of his family. He went to a school of preaching in Chennai, an excellent Bible student. This man here, when we were in his house, this is his Vijay's nephew right here. And so we were there, and we were eating, and I don't know how we came on the subject, but they found out I went to Memphis School of Preaching. And I said, oh, you went to Memphis School of Preaching? I said, Yeah, you know about Memphis School of Preaching? I said, oh, everybody knows about Memphis School of Preaching. And it says, matter of fact, this guy, and I've got his name on my phone, but I won't be rude and look at it right now. He said, I applied there 4 months ago. I said, oh, did you really? He said, yes, I did. And he did it online. So he gave me an information packet about himself with an application. He is a doctor in physical therapy. He's got his doctorate in that and has a good job over there. But he wants to come and study the Bible and then go back and teach in the school where I was. It's a great, great family. He's a great man. His English is probably better than any of ours. He knows why the English words are spelled a certain way and why we use them a certain way. He knows the rules better than I do. Very, very sharp man. And you might be seeing him. We'll just see how that goes. This next picture is, I said, of the baptism. They're all surrounding the baptism tub. I knew there was going to be a baptism. About halfway during my sermon, a guy gets up and he goes, and this is all while I'm preaching, and it's happening right over here. He starts unwinding this big old long hose, and then he takes it and he flops it in the baptism tub and goes over there and turns on the water. And when he does, there's a leak in the valve and it starts spraying everywhere. So he's got to fix that. This is all going on during the worship service. So I thought, there's going to be a baptism. And then found out there were 7 people who were going to be baptized. And so from where I was sitting, I didn't have a good view, obviously. But they came up and they all got around the baptistry. And 7 people were baptized. It was a beautiful thing. And baptisms over there happen quite a bit. And it's just powerful to watch people respond to the gospel in every culture. It's done the same way. Yeah, there's some different techniques and just different, how everybody was there standing around, which I absolutely loved, by the way. Everybody got up and stood around and watched. And then, of course, welcomed them. And then we went on with worship after that for a couple more hours. But just a great thing. As I said, banners are everywhere. This is their school banner. They have all of the quarters, and I only took a picture of one. All of the quarters blocked out, who's going to be teaching what, the different courses that they'll offer for the entire 2 years. And, we do the same thing, but now we just send it by email. But here is everybody can tell what's going to be taught next because that's there. Here's the school. These are the students. Again, we took this before it started. There was a lot more. There's 21 students there in the preaching school. They did open it up this week for anybody who could come and attend, or not just anybody. It wasn't for just anybody, but people from congregations that were very astute, wanted to learn more. Some preachers from the area came, even though they're not officially in the school, to try to learn a little bit this week. And so every chair was filled, and we had some young ladies that also took the class and did better than just about all the guys in the class. They were just very, very good. Their homework was just, everybody's homework was really good, but theirs, they drew pictures. They went the extra mile. All right, this is for the preaching students, this next one. And I know I'm kind of hurrying on, but I want to get to the last part especially. But this is for the preaching students. I remember people when I was in school complaining that 8:30 was too early to start for chapel. Who gets up at 8:30? One of my friends said. I won't mention his name, but I remember he was fresh out of college, and he didn't like to get up early. He said, why can't we start at 9 like normal people? All right, this is their schedule that they go by every day. Yeah, 5 to 6, you get woken up, and so you can have your personal devotion time, 5 to 6 a.m. You refresh, I guess take a shower or whatever, from 6 to 7. Breakfast is from 8 to 9. Then they have the devotion from 9 to 9:45. And then class actually starts at 9:45, and you can see the rest. The tea break those tea breaks don't go past the time when it's time for tea. That's the only time I've ever seen an Indian be time conscious is when it's tea time. They'll start looking at their watch and say, that must be tea time. And so obviously it is. But so they'll have their tea time in the morning and in the afternoon. And then their 5th hour class from 3:15 to 4:15. So it's a packed day. Did this each day from Monday to Friday until I left. And that's how it is every day for them. These students all live on premises, which of course is a very handy thing. This next one, you know how guys, when you go in, you have to look at the board to see who has what. who has song leading and prayer and all this. Well, this is their version of that. That's their board. It's in a book, and everybody is expected to know who has what. And one of the students is responsible for reminding each person, this is what you have today, this is what you have today, for their devotion time from 9 to 9:45. Then this next one I got a kick out of. Maybe you won't, but I thought it was interesting. They have a food menu. This is the most organized place I've ever seen in my life, I think. They went to the extra mile. This is their food menu that they do each month. Kind of like when you were in grade school. Remember how they would send you home the food menu for the cafeteria for the whole month? They've got that over there. They keep track of everything. They have books, and one of the instructors is in charge of keeping the dining log. Anybody who eats there has to sign their name. So they keep track of who eats meals there down to the last dime. They really are very careful to make sure that they just keep track of everything. So well organized. VJ's wife is an accountant. And man, she is so handy to have there at the school. She keeps the books and just does a great job with that. All right, this is the last part. And I won't read all of these to you. But I was telling you this morning how that there's so many things that are the same when you go to a country like that. But then there's some things that you just, yep, I'm in a whole new world over here. Not only the dress, not only the food, not only the customs, the sitting and the chairs and some of the ladies on the floor and different things like that. But you know what's funny, and I don't know, I might be the only one that does this, probably not. But when I'm in these places, I'll look and say, oh yeah, there's our, Greg Mangrum, or there's our Tom Waycaster, and there's our, and so when you go through these, I did this a lot because they went through this list by list while I was over there, part of that 4.5 hour worship service. What they have is, and I've got it here in front of me, but I typed it up for you, the churches of Christ in the different locations. During this service, they have a list. And again, I'm not reading all of these, so don't worry, of 60 things, 60 different works in the church that everybody has to sign up for. And this is their motto. It says, no one just attends, everyone must do something. So they hand these out, and you put a check next to the ones that you might be interested in helping in. Then you turn that back in. They have you sign it and date it, and they keep it on file. So if you're not doing it, they're going to get on you. But just look at some of these things, and you'll notice I've left some blanks. These are the ones that just stick out in my mind. The bread for the Sunday worship. We have that. And I left it just like they had it typed for me. Preparing the vine for worship service. I imagine they meant fruit of the vine, but cleansing the vessels of bread and wine before worship. And then like cleansing the building after the worship, cleansing the chairs before worship. And then what about this one? Cleansing the cobwebs in the building. That's actually on this list. And you can sign up to be the guy in charge or the lady in charge of cleansing the cobwebs in the building. Cleaning the bathrooms. We have all of those things. Serving food after worship service. And then maintaining the kitchen. This is the second part of the list. Maintaining the PA system. I like this one. Maintaining the electrical things. We have a few good men here, I guess, who are in charge of maintaining our electrical things. Whatever that is, you could sign up to maintain the electrical things. Maintaining the hymn books. And that is a big job over there. They collect them and hand them out each Sunday. And those hymn books over there, man, they're like gold over there. And that's a big job. A lot of them are missing covers. They're all paperback. They just appreciate things like that over there. They don't have what we have. Maintaining the taps. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure that they do. You have to maintain the taps. I don't know if that's water taps or what it is, but you can maintain the taps. I love this one. Visiting the absentees of the worship. You can sign up to visit those people who missed the worship service. Greeting the newcomers, preparing accommodation to the guests. It's going to get better here. This is my favorite coming up. Vehicles for those coming to worship. Keeping the trees. Whatever the tree keeper is, that's what he does. Cleansing the terrace, supplying the water to the worshipers. If you're going to go for 4.5 hours, you need water breaks, so they come around with water for people. Maintaining the parking system. And then this I like. This is not a thing that we have here. But over there, you can see why it's such an important thing. You get 300 people in one place who all take off their shoes beforehand. Keeping the slippers. That's on this list of a church job that you could do if you were a member of the Turipati Church of Christ. And then cleansing the baptismal tub. Every congregation in the Lord's church, everywhere. This is a big goal and task right here. The baptistry, sometimes I think we ought to go back to the lakes and rivers and start doing that. Now that I'm already baptized and I don't have to worry about going in the ice. But cleansing the baptismal tub, they've got a guy over there for that. And then this one. This is my favorite of all. Preparing the coffin box for dead bodies. Who here is in charge of that in this congregation? And I'm glad they do it for dead bodies and not live ones. But preparing the coffins. And, I laugh at that, and I think it's hilarious. And I think, yep, I'm not Forest Hill Church of Christ anymore when I see something like that. But let me tell you something. Especially if you're a Hindu, when you obey the gospel, you lose all government funding. You lose a lot of family. And about the only family you have on this earth is your church family. They take care of you when you're living, and they even take care of you when you die. That's what family does. And I tell you, you want to see the first century church, go over there and just look at some of the things that they do. Introducing new youth to the Bible classes. And again, keep the theme. No one just attends. Everyone must do something. Taking care of the widows. Taking medical care. Making sure that people are taken care of. Giving family counseling. Cleaning the water tank. Praying for the prayer requests. Leading family Bible classes. Teaching new hymns to the church. And then this one. Teaching last week lessons to the absentees. So if you missed on Sunday, you're going to have a visit, and that person's going to come and visit you and tell you what the lesson was about and go through the lesson with you. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that really a neat thing? I think that's just an awesome idea. You go over there, the idea you're going to teach these people something, and you do, hopefully, but you come away, you think, man, why didn't we think of that? That's just a great thing, going and teaching the lessons. No one just attends. Everyone must do something. We're almost done. This is the last slide. Taking attendance. And then I love this one, the rice response. And you've probably seen, if you remember the presentations I made in the past here, most congregations will have a bucket of some kind. The bigger congregations will have almost like a trash can. And as members come in, they'll dump rice into that bucket or to that trash can, whatever it is. Sometimes the small congregations, it's only a vessel about this big, just mainly a cup, and they'll dump that in there. And then after the service, they'll divide that up and take it to the village to people who are starving. And you want to talk about how a lot of people are converted to Christ? You take it to an old Hindu widow lady who her government has let her down. The Hindus have let her down. But here are some Christians that care about her that she has a need, and so they bring her rice. And so many respond to the gospel that way. That's their food pantry, basically, is what it is. Collecting old and new clothes. Nothing is trash in India. If there's a stitch left, they can use it. All right, young people, wake up and listen to this. There, you're doing great. Finding matches to youth. That's exactly what you think it is. And I know some of you women who would be so good at this. My mom would love this job. She would circle out, put a star by it, and she would beg to have this job. Finding matches to youth. So what it is, they still do have arranged marriages over there. It's not what you think necessarily, but they'll know a good young man here. And someone else in the congregation will know a good young lady in another congregation. And they'll get together and talk about it. I have this young man here who is just an outstanding Christian young man. He does well in school and takes good care of himself and all of these things. And they'll talk, because over there, like for a father to go to another man and say, hey, would your son be interested in dating my daughter? Oh, no. That goes against everything in their culture. They had to have a mediator. And so this person finds matches to youth. And that's how Christians meet. And it's a wonderful thing. Does that not make a little bit of sense? Doesn't that make some sense? I know our young people might not like that, but I'm going to tell you something. Rather than just taking a chance, well, hopefully you'll find somebody to marry. How about introducing them to good Christian people? And that just makes some sense. And then legal advice. I wonder who would take care of that here at the Forest Hill Church of Christ if we were in Tirapati. Legal advice is part of the work of the church over there. Taking photos, maintaining notice boards, and overall in charge. I don't know what that one is either, but I think I would sign up for that one. Just let me be over. No, I don't know. Whatever overall in charge is. But I wanted to show you this. Some of them are very, very comical, but I absolutely love that idea. No one just attends. Everyone must do something. And here are congregations with no elders, yet they do it. They don't have elders yet. It's younger congregations. They have some men, I think, who are qualified. But even with no elders, this is enforced, and it's just expected. Listen, if you're going to obey the gospel, you need to know that when you obey the gospel, it's not just showing up at church for an hour or two and putting your time in and punching the clock. It's, all right, you're part of the family. You've got to do your part to keep the church going and growing as it is. And so you see some of these things, and you just see simplicity, yet you see beauty, and you see how people in these countries can do great things with so little, yet they can do great things. We had that morning worship service in a parking garage. It was too big. They couldn't fit them in any of the church buildings, so they had it kind of like in a parking garage. And that's where they held the service that day. And we worshiped the Lord. They brought the baptistry with them to this place, filled it up while I was speaking. And what you can do when your heart is right. And then the great thing about the true gospel of Christ, you can worship Him if you're the wealthiest person on this earth, or if you don't have two pennies to rub together, you can worship Him just as well. And they can do it, and they do it each Lord's Day. So that's the trip. Once again, I wanted to just tell you how appreciative I am that you allowed me to go. You sent me, you helped me financially, and we pray that some great things were done and will make a lasting effect. Training those preachers is such a key. People are being converted faster than they can keep up with them. We need gospel preachers to go out in their own culture, in their own tongue, and teach the people the gospel, because, boy, they're obeying left and right over there, and we just need more workers. But you'll see, it's not just the preachers working there, is it? Everyone must do something. Love that theme, and thought it would just be good to encourage us with that today. If you are not yet a Christian, we would love for you to become one. Yes, you might have to give up some things. You might have to count the cost and realize that there's some things you're going to lose when you obey the gospel of Christ. But it doesn't compare with what you gain. Not only do you gain eternal life in the blood of Jesus Christ, but you also gain a family and people who will be there with you, for you, care for you, comfort you, laugh with you, weep with you. That's what being in the church is. And if you want to obey the gospel of Christ today, we pray that you'll do that. Or perhaps at one time you did obey, but you've not been living as you should. Maybe you've just been attending, not doing what you should. Why not start today and start again? I'm going to be an active member of the church. If we can help you in any way, if we can pray with you and for you, won't you come all together?